RFK was at a we haven't gotten too much of this, but we're going to be going out to candidates that are nominally on the left, because it's increasingly hard for me to think that RFK is on the left in terms of some of his positions. To be honest with you. I think he's probably, to large part qualifies as some, a lot of his positions are center left, but a lot of them are center right and right, frankly, in my opinion. And I'm surprised by it, to be honest with you.
I mean, it makes a little more sense, though, that when Roger Stone's boosting your campaign.
And Judd Legum did a great piece on a lot of his financial support is coming from the right. Now, there's always that theory. There's always that theory that we're going to promote a primary candidate in the Democratic Party because it's going to create chaos. I am personally in favor of primary challenges to Democratic incumbents. We could talk more about that and in a different context. But
yeah, I would have supported Bernie if he did it in 2012, like people said he hinted at.
Without a doubt. But I'm talking just broadly, without even knowing the names of the candidates. Yeah. I support primary challenges. I will be against certain people in that, if, Joe Manchin was to run against Joe Biden in the Democratic Party, I would be against it.
Yeah.
I just love democracy.
But I do think that primary challenges are good. RFK spoke at a campaign event in Manhattan. It was supposedly off the record, I guess. And, maybe there should be somebody there saying hey, maybe you shouldn't record this. Because it seems like somebody's using an iPhone, and it's pretty stable.
I mean, they leaked it to the New York Post. Good that they did, because we have, and this makes it a little clear how insane his positions are.
Let's listen to this in its entirety. Here is RFK talking about stuff.
And we need to talk about bioweapons. I know a lot now about bioweapons because I've been doing a book on it for the past 2.5 years. And the technology that we now have to develop these microbes, we've put hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19, there's...
Pause it for a second. Now, let's just say this. I think it is the case that in the context of bioweapons, and I don't know what we have developed, but certainly the idea that you could target bioweapons to hit people who have certain genetic traits, it's really sort of an updated version of let's give indigenous Americans
smallpox
blankets. They don't have, let's find a pathogen that they haven't developed, enzymes or proteins or, against. So that's not terribly controversial. But here he is talking about COVID, and this is really important to listen carefully here, because his statement defending his points is a bit of a straw man, if you ask me. But
dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19, there's an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are because of the structure of the genetic structure.
All right, pause it for 1 second, because I want to go through this slowly because this is important. There's an argument that COVID-19 is ethnically targeted. Let's be clear here. He's not saying there's an argument that COVID-19 hits some people differently based upon their genetic makeup. That's not what he's saying.
Right.
That's not inconceivable. That's not what he's saying. He's saying targeted. targeted is a specific word, and a virus does not target something. Someone who deploys a virus targets something.
He's talking about this in the context of bioweapons, so the context makes it immensely clear that the underlying assumption that he's operating under is that COVID-19 is a bioweapon.
Well, he's saying there are arguments.
I know, but like,
Well, no, but I want to. The nuances are important here because the way that he defends himself is he uses these.
Yeah.
Now, so you got to ask yourself. There are arguments about everything. There is not a single premise I could give to you that is not bat crap crazy that I could introduce on this show if I say there are arguments. But every time I do, and every time you do, when you're talking to someone else, you're making a choice. What am I going to highlight in this context? So saying there are arguments is not a defense. Because when you articulate it in this context, you are saying it's an argument that I think is worth really thinking about. In fact, maybe more so than any of the other arguments. Because he's not saying there are arguments that say that, well, he's not qualifying it at all. He's not saying, of course. I mean, he could have said, he could have just said, COVID-19, there's data that suggests that it hits certain people more than other people. Now, we'll get into that data. Because it also, one of the reasons also has to do with uptake of vaccinations. But continue.
Cases that are most immune to COVID-19 are because of the structure of the genetic structure of genetic differentials among different races of the receptors of the ACE2 receptor. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and Black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. But we don't know whether it was deliberately targeted that or not. But there are papers out there that show the racial and ethnic differential impact.
We don't know if it was deliberately targeted that way. So now, incidentally, at the very least, the idea, if we don't know it's deliberate, that's a subsidiary question after you determine that someone created COVID.
Yep.
And we don't know if they deliberately targeted it. Because unless you believe that COVID was you need to believe that COVID was created. To believe that there's an open question as to whether it was deliberately targeted. So now we also have the premise that established that it was deliberately created. We just don't know if it was deliberately targeted.
Yeah, and I just want to say that what he touches on here is incredibly dangerous territory with conspiracy theories. I mean, he's going. Should we just keep going?
Yeah. I want to get to that, to the tropes in a bit. Because to me, the underlining thing here is that all of it, not the stuff that he's chosen to address, all of it is bat crap crazy and gives you a sense of where he's getting his information.
Yes.
And what he's trying to promote.
And Black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. But we don't know whether it was deliberately targeted that or not. But there are papers out there that show the racial and ethnic differential impact to that. We do know that the Chinese are spending hundreds of millions of dollars developing ethnic bioweapons, and we are developing ethnic bioweapons. That's what all those labs in the Ukraine are about. They're collecting Russian DNA, they're collecting Chinese DNA, so that we can target people by race.
Wait, that's not the long one. We need to keep going on that. There is a longer version of that.
Okay.
Where that is not the long one.
Well, what they're tapping into and what I was hinting at there when he speaks there about the connection between Chinese people and Ashkenazi Jews, this is a derivation of the Jewish Bolshevik conspiracy, which is essentially a connection of Jews and the communist movement, and so you're just supplementing Russian people for Chinese people in this area, and that. These two groups, it's very suspicious that the Communist Chinese Party and Ashkenazi Jews are somehow exempt from this. That's the underlying assumption here in this conversation about bioweapons, where then he happens to mention COVID-19. So, I mean, that is the stuff that I think made people absolutely crazy.
It all misses the point, because if we got to get the long one, you got to find the long one. That's specifically why I wanted the long one, because the long one. Okay, there's a longer one where he talks more about this targeting stuff, and that is really the issue here. Because first off, you have to believe that we know the millions of Chinese who are exposed to this. You also have to believe. And it shouldn't be that far of a distance to go. If you believe that the Chinese have if you believe that the Chinese have created this, and then you believe that it's possible, some people argue, that they target it, you also have to believe that the Chinese were completely upfront and open with who got sick in China.
Yeah, exactly.
And all right, there is a longer version there that is out there, but we didn't have it. But the point is, he is denying. And let's put up his
response.
His response to the criticism, and the criticism was largely, this is anti-Semitic and this and that. And I mean, I have no reason to believe that. That Bobby Kennedy is anti-Semitic. Okay? Espousing that, I think it's is it an anti-Semitic trope that he's dealing with? Yes.
Yeah.
I think that his judgment is certainly clouded by a desire to create a narrative that his mind is like intensely interested in creating a narrative. But he says the insinuation by the New York Post and others that as a result of my quoting a peer-reviewed paper on bioweapons that I'm somehow anti-Semitic is a disgusting fabrication. If the issue was that he's talking about bioweapons, as opposed to saying there's an argument that COVID-19 was targeted, and if there's an argument that it's targeted, and it leaves out Chinese people and Jewish people and Finnish people, maybe you should explore that. Like, what's going on there? That seems weird. I mean, if somebody targeted it, right? Like, why would they target it in that way? I understand the emotional pain that these inaccurate distortions and fabrications have caused to many Jews who recall the blood libel, poison wells, et cetera, et cetera. My father and my uncles. I intend to spend my political career making those family causes my priority in terms of Israel and fighting anti-Semitism. We'll talk about his stances on Israel, which I find, really problematic aside. But I will fight relentlessly along my Jewish sisters and brothers. I've just recorded an interview with Rabbi Shmuley. Let me tell you something about Rabbi Shmuley, who was Michael Jackson's personal rabbi. This guy, I've met this guy. He is a clown. A right-wing clown. A right-wing clown. I mean, like, honestly, I don't even, like, I haven't heard of Rabbi Shmuley's, since the last time he was coming out actually to defend some other right-wing guy, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. The idea that the Post called him the most famous rabbi in America, yeah, he was Michael Jackson's Sort of like one of his spiritual advisors.
The last time I remember him, he was taking out a full-page ad in the Washington Post. Fight Ilhan, #Fight Ilhan anti-Semitism.
And some of the most anti-Semitic people in this country are defenders of Israel. So let's cut to the chase here.
He also touts Rabbi Shmuley's bona fides by saying, I have called upon the Biden administration not to consummate a second Iran deal.
This is the anti-imperialist president.
Yeah, that's very nice. Good job.
One real solid foreign policy achievement that Barack Obama ever made was that deal. The biggest failing, in my estimation, of the Biden administration is a failure to come in and seal that deal on day one. But the idea that this guy is running in the Democratic primary is just, he's running to the right of Biden.
That's Netanyahu's line on the Iran deal. He's just repeating that. That is like the far right Israeli position on Iran denuclearization.
But the idea, and frankly, like I say, the anti-Semitic nature of that trope, in my mind, is secondary to all of the other bat crap stuff that I think is indicative of what he is churning out in private and who he is talking to about this stuff. The idea that he is, and let's be clear, that clip shows he is talking that he thinks that COVID-19 was targeted, or that there's debate about whether it being targeted. And if there's debate about whether it's targeted, that he's entertaining, then he must believe that it was manufactured as a bioweapon.
And wouldn't that be a provocation for war if China, it turned out, was creating bioweapons that attacked white and black people?
It sure sounds like it. Really astonishing. All right. Let's read some IMs and we'll get out of here. Juniper J. Sam, I'm looking for you on Threads, but I'm not sure which profile is yours. Is there a link from the app that I'm overlooking? No, I got to get to that. We got to do that. I'm not posting anything on Threads anyways.
I'm not even on Threads yet.
And I'm not even sure I'm going to. We'll see. I know I don't like Meta.
Yeah, I have 2 Blue Sky invite codes. I gotta give those to people. Blue Sky's the best one, although still, Twitter, it's so much more is posted on there, so it's hard not to get sucked back in. But
we'll just have to wait till the advertisers leave and go fully to Threads, and then go to Blue Sky. Nug Wrangler, is the hat Sam going? Is that the hat Sam going through his incel arc? MSNB Cedar. Yeehaw, wait, where'd the hat go? Bring back the hat. No. Northern Spy, Scoop Cedar coming at you live from the heartland of America. Chicago Letter Carrier. I saw this. I don't know why I got so inspired to wear this.
it's funny.
It's funny. Did you know that USPS craft employees cannot go on strike, as a no strike clause has been part of their contracts for decades?
Well, you can still go on strike. Just called a wildcat strike.
Number 13. The fallout from 303 Creative LLC versus Atlantis continues to pick up steam. A justice of the peace, Diane Hensley from Waco, Texas, has cited the case in an appeal to the Texas Supreme Court. She's appealing the dismissal of a lawsuit she filed to allow her to refuse marrying same-sex couples. Literal judicial officers attempting to have First Amendment protections for her discriminatory behavior rather than retiring. Yeah. Well, people forget there was a woman in Kentucky and in a county who refused to issue marriage licenses after the Supreme Court decision.
I remember that. Yeah.
And that was the last holdout in the country.
Kim Davis.
Yeah, Kim Davis. All right, 5 of these. Joe's Rogaine. Sam, I know how much you want libertarians and conservatives to call in and I debate you, so I propose regular listeners call in and give you the numbers of their conservative family members. That way you can call them and debate instead. Maybe I need to do like a bounty. Like you will get $5 if you get your conservative. I don't know. Kowalski from Nebraska. I would like to add to this Russian invasion of Ukraine discussion. I feel like your interview was misleading to create a narrative that was uncharitable to NATO. All right. Well, tomorrow's the day for that. Sorry, Kowalski. Tommy Hot Tub. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't Israeli IDs prominently display ethnic status?
I mean, I don't know,
I'm not sure I follow that.
but
What is that in reference to?
if it's racist or
if
not.
it's a racist country, probably.
Oh, I would imagine.
Shows religion.
Incidentally, like the papers he's talking about in terms of COVID striking people, 2020 data. Again, you have to believe that we know the real numbers of Chinese people, and you have to filter out for I am quite sure that there is more sort of long-term sort of understanding of how COVID hits the body, and then of course we have multiple different types of COVID.
And zero
mean,
COVID. And in China, their lockdown protocols were much more stringent.
We also know that, yes, and that in, there may be a different sort of propensity to wear masks. There may be a different propensity to get vaccinated. Certainly, in the context of Israel, the Israeli population got far more vaccinated. The Jewish Israeli population got far more vaccinated than the Arab population because, of course, Israel is a non-racist society that made sure that all the Jews in Israel got vaccinated and didn't really do as much work in terms of getting the Arab populations vaccinated.
I mean, this approach to science is just one that's helpful to the fossil fuel industry. Like the idea that this entire industry and everyone can be actually they're missing something that RFK and some idiots with YouTube channels do see. That's basically telling, say, don't believe the scientists when they come to say, actually, the world's warming at this pace.
We didn't ever get to his warming video either, did we?
Oh, I didn't know there was one. RFK.
Oh, God. He cut his own ad with Jordan Peterson.
Oh, we saw that. Yes. Yeah. Right. I'll do that tomorrow.